Can I get a yeehaw? This is my 7/8 days through 4 national parks: White Sands, Guadalupe Mountains, Carlsbad Caverns, and Big Bend. So I started my trip on a Saturday morning in White Sands. I flew into Albuquerque, drove over to Alamogordo, and hit White Sands that morning, planning to spend about half a day here. I didn't see a need to spend much more than that. So I pulled off at a couple different spots. There's, as you saw, the first one that kind of has all the picnic tables and overhangs. Walked around there for maybe a mile or two, just in whatever direction felt right. And it was extremely pretty. It was a perfect day. It was like 65 degrees. So I did this trip in the beginning of April, late March. I'm still sort of strolling along the dune tops. I don't know, I feel like out this way, I'll put it behind me, a lot more white. I can't see anything right now. So after spending some time at the first location, I moved over to Alkali Flats Trail, and this was, I would say, a little more hilly. There were much higher dunes and a lot less of the little bushes between all of the different dunes, which apparently cover and change as the years go. I think this is kind of what White Sands is truly known for. A lot less green, a lot more white. You can see people behind me also on the trail. Yeah, this is, so here's an example of what one of the markers might look like. Some of them are almost completely buried in sand. This one's sitting up a little bit more. You know, I had to get all the sand out of my socks. You know, it's coarse, it gets everywhere. Decided to stop at the gift shop, and then I was on my way out of Alamogordo and off to Carlsbad, but I was going to stop at Lincoln National Forest in Cloudcroft, which is a small little town kind of up on, really in a completely different biome from all the desert that's around you. So, you know, you're up with the trees and the pine trees and the bugs, and it feels a lot more like home and a lot less like the desert. But I got some beautiful shots here. It was still nice and cool, maybe about 75, 80 degrees at this point, midday, but I was rather comfortable. The trail was pretty short. I think it was only about 3.5, 4 miles. Not too much elevation gain or loss, so really easy to do if you just want something a little different on a trip where you're going to be seeing a lot of desert, to have something that just has a little bit more variety to it. Unrelated, I did finally get my parks pass, but I don't know. It could be better. So the next day I woke up in Carlsbad and decided to drive to Guadalupe Mountains and do the Guadalupe Peak hike, which was going to be the toughest hike that I was going to do on the whole trip. There was a later one that I decided to bail on at Big Bend, so this ended up being the hardest hike that I did during the trip. But the views were absolutely worth it. Again, another perfect day. I guess it's the desert. You should just expect it to be sunny if it's not the rainy season. It started at like 50-ish degrees. I was comfortable. Always try to rest in shady spots. So I found this little pine tree kind of alone. It's not much, but it's something. You can kind of see under there. Parking lot way off in the distance. Mountains up here. It still feels great. It's like maybe 50 degrees. I'm comfortable. And you can see right when you turn this corner, that's when you lose the parking lot and you're really kind of headed towards even higher mountains than before, what you could even see when you were on the other side of the mountain. So there's kind of like there really are three distinct sections of this hike. If I didn't have this hat, it would be problematic. But we're doing okay. There's the first stretch, which is mostly uphill, the second stretch, which is more shaded, a little bit more level, and then the final stretch, which is another just run pretty much up a hill. Definitely, if you do this hike, take advantage of any shade you get. Try to plan your breaks and your stops in areas that are shaded just to get out of the sun, just to, cool yourself off a little bit. Also, you absolutely need a hat. Even as ridiculous as the hat looks that I'm wearing, without it, I know my neck would have torched, my face probably would have torched. Get a really good sun hat when you're coming to the Southwest, because trust me, you're gonna need it. And here I am at the peak. I did take a few pictures up here with the monument thing, but yeah, tallest point in Texas definitely lives up to the hype. You can even see some sand straight out from right here. That's not clouds, that's sand. There are other white sand dunes that were nearby, so this is kind of a full 360, and then right here you'll be able to see El Capitan from behind. So that's that really famous bright face that faces the highway, but we're seeing it from the backside here. So I spent about 30 or 40 minutes up here, and then I decided just to slowly make my way back down. I knew it was a long journey and it would be a long journey back down, so I took my time. So I'm almost to the final turn before I see the parking lot. Pretty much out of water, out of everything, so luckily it's not too far from here, but it's definitely warmed up a lot in just a few hours. Oh, that feels good. Nice breeze. There's always a nice breeze right in this spot. And ta-da! My car is down there. So the next day, day 3, I was hitting park number 3, and that was Carlsbad Caverns. So this I decided to do mid-morning, but I think going earlier probably would have been better. There's a really nice visitor center. I would say that of all the visitor centers I went to, I actually liked Carlsbad Caverns the best. I felt like it had the best information. I liked the layout the most, and it just had the most to do and look at. So I think you'll be spending a little more time here at this visitor center than some of the others, but the others were fine as well. So I was scheduled to go in at 11:30, but because I was a solo, they moved my time up. So be aware of that if you're a solo and you show up early. They might just boost you into an earlier group, and you can get down faster. So there is a quick briefing with one of the park rangers about what to do or not to do, of course, and then you'll enter and walk down the super steep slope into the cave, and you will slowly descend into the darkness. This was probably one of the cooler parts, I think, of it, just watching the light fade away slowly but surely. I did bring a flashlight. You don't need one. It's pretty well lit up down there, but if you want to see little things, in crevices that aren't lit up, then you would need a flashlight. Just be mindful of other people. But here now, once you get down to the really core of the big room, as they call it, that's kind of where that's really the heart of the cavern. When you're in the big room, it really is just kind of one continuous area with all the stalactite, stalagmite formations and everything else, and it's very cool. You even notice that after millions of years, bathrooms will form automatically in the rock, which is pretty cool. This one looked like a weird mummy. I kind of thought that was awesome. I would say I spent about 2.5 hours, and then I was ready to leave. I didn't really know where the elevator was, so I walked out of Carlsbad Caverns. Well, I hiked my dumb ass out of that cave. No elevator needed for me. No. I'm goated. I'm too goated. But I wouldn't recommend. Take the elevator. Because now I don't know if I'm going to have energy to do anything at Guadalupe Mountains tomorrow, like Devil's Pass or Smith Springs. But we'll see how I'm feeling. See how the recovery goes. So the next day, it was onward to Big Bend, but that's a 4-hour drive. So I found Balmorhea State Park was about a halfway point, and it's pretty much right on your trip. So if you are going from Carlsbad Caverns to Big Bend, you may need to make a reservation in the busy season, but if not, you can just show up, and it's a freshwater spring swimming hole. It's like consistently around 65, 70 degrees. The water felt great, and it was finally time to dunk my GoPro for the first time in water. And footage, I mean, I think it came out pretty nice. So you're really swimming with the fishes, mostly little fish, but there are some bigger catfish on the bottom, maybe carp. I'm not quite sure what they are. You can see a black one off there to the right. There were some turtles as well. I wasn't lucky enough to find them with my footage. I was looking around, but couldn't find the turtles. I think a few people saw them, but you can see it gets pretty deep. I mean, I'd say I couldn't stand in a lot of part of it, and even if I kind of dipped down, I couldn't touch. So I think it goes down to at least 9 or 10 feet in some areas, and then you can see some algae and plants growing on the bottom. So it was really nice after all the hiking and walking around at Carlsbad Caverns to just take a nice little dip in some really, really perfect temperature water. And then I wrapped that up, got changed, and it was finally time to get to Big Bend and get to my hotel. So I would say I got to Big Bend probably around 4 p.m. Checking into my hotel was super easy. I stayed at Big Bend Station. Please note that there are no luxury hotels here. There are no chains. It is all local. So here is my room in Big Bend. It's not big, but you know what? That's pretty quiet. The sheets are clean. It's honestly everything I need. I don't need anything more than this, so that's nice. You got a refrigerator, even a microwave, and then the bathroom and shower. So, not bad. So after getting checked into my hotel, I had enough time to catch sunset. So I sped off to Big Bend, finally checking off that last national park, hit all 4, and headed over to Soltel Vistas, which is the main overlook at Big Bend. This is where you come to see the sunsets. So if you are coming to Big Bend, Soltel Vista is a must-do, and you can see I caught it. I think the best sunset really was my first day. This orange glow, there was rain kind of off in the distance, creating that extra illumination. So it's just really perfect. You know, sometimes a fully sunny sunset isn't as beautiful as one with a little bit of cloud cover. So I got extremely lucky with this one. Again, weather was perfect, so just hung out here. I tried to do a time lapse with my GoPro, but messed it up. So anyway, pretend this is a time lapse. And then drove home because it was time to wake up and get on the trails for my first full day. So, day 1, I was planning to do Lost Mine Trail, but I got to the parking lot and it was full. So, it was time to do the Window Trail instead. So, Window Trail is typically one you're supposed to do at sunset, and Lost Mine is sunrise. Oh, I did them in reverse order. Whatever, they were both still great. So, Window Trail is mostly downhill, and then coming back it's uphill. So, I think that's why they want you to do it in the afternoon, evening. When it's hot, then you come back up, it's cooler. There were a lot of the Chisos Mountains is so different from all the other locations in Big Bend. You know, really a lot more plant life, a lot more trees, and you can see that here on the trail. Once you get to the end of the trail, it gets very, very rocky, so do watch your step. Make sure you're wearing really good hiking shoes. Trail's extremely well marked, mostly just dirt, gravel. It was easy. Once I got to the bottom, I did go through a couple selfies and pictures with a couple other groups that were down there. All in all, I'd say, I'm a very rewards-based hiker. I like a really great view when I make it to the end, and this was just fine. It was fine. I was over it. So I stayed for maybe 10 or 15 minutes and then decided to head back up and move on to something else. Weather was holding up. It was partly cloudy. That kept the sun out of my eyes a little bit, kept it a little cooler, which was very nice. And then I was off to Santa Elena Canyon Trail. This is, if you do one trail at Big Bend, this is the one to do. I cannot imagine going to this park and not doing this trail if you're able. So you're driving towards this huge wall, and when you arrive, parking is pretty good. There's quite a bit. You may need to walk a little ways. So you'll walk out on this little plank here. And then you will have to kind of cross over a dry bed to get onto the right side of the canyon walls. And then there's a pretty clear trail from there that's marked that'll take you up. So you'll kind of go up about 50 to 70 stairs and then go back down. And that's really all the incline you're going to have during this trail. Once you go back down, you're going to dip back to the water. And this is where I decided to walk to Mexico. So once you get to the bottom, there's a little trail, and then you can walk into the water and walk across over to the other side, which is Mexico. The water can be really slimy, but if you walk in the center of the river, because there's slightly more of a current, it's not even necessarily deeper most of the time, but it'll be a little more sand and a little less sludge. So bring water shoes if you don't like the sludgy feel when you're walking through. Water temperature feels great, and one thing I learned from a couple of the guides and rangers is that, there's no real dangerous snakes or anything to be worried. There's no piranhas, there's no dangerous venomous snakes lurking in the water. There's nothing, it's quite safe. So if that was a concern, you don't need to worry about that. The birds were singing overhead, flying back and forth. And the overhang of the canyon just gives you perfect shade. So even though it was a 90-degree day, it felt about 70 under there with the water. I mean, it was very peaceful, just a very beautiful place to have a snack. I could have hung out here for hours. I really could have. Just brought swim trunks, had a swim. It was really peaceful and nice, even though there were a lot of people. So took some selfies and some pictures with someone else that was there. And then had a quick snack, and then decided to make my way back across the water back to the USA. It's a really gorgeous watercolor day. There hasn't been a lot of rain, so it's not muddy. It's very, very beautiful, which is nice. Cannot imagine coming to this park and not doing this hike. It is short, it is easy, it is beautiful. Yeah, there's no reason not to do this hike if you're coming to Big Bend. So sandwich it somewhere in your itinerary. You can actually hear the bees because there's so few flower trees around. Whenever you find bushes that do have a lot of pollen and nectar, you will hear a million bees. So just be aware of that. So after that, I decided to go over to the fossil exhibit, and I was the only one there. I had the place to myself. It was late afternoon by this time and a little bit more overcast. But it was pretty cool to see a lot of the fossils and a lot of the information about all the dinosaurs that they've dug up here and that had lived here so long ago. They were replicas, they weren't the real thing, obviously, because I would steal one if it was the real thing. But a lot of cool information. I will say this was one of the first moments where you really feel the eeriness of a desert. There's no bugs, there's no noise. If there's no wind, it's just dead silent. And since I was the only person there and there were no cars driving by, it's just, you really start to get the isolation feel. So unfortunately, it was a really overcast night, and that lasted most of my trip. I did not get a good stargazing at Big Bend, which means I have to go back. Partly because of the clouds, and partly because it was a full moon each night, so, you know, I didn't calculate that properly. If there's one thing you should learn from that, it's make sure to check the moon phases before you book your trip to Big Bend. Okay, this was probably my favorite day of the whole trip, and my last full day, where I did kayaking in Boquillas Canyon with hiking with the Big Bend Hiking and Boating Company. I'll put a link down to their website below. They were awesome. I learned a ton from both of our guides, and there's about 15 of us all together. It was the full day trip through Boquillas Canyon. So we dropped in here, and then, you know, I wasn't sure if I was going to get to Boquillas Springs on this trip because I was so crushed for time, but so even just as we dropped in, there were some horses. I don't think these were wild horses. I do think they were owned by a rancher, but I can't confirm that. But I'm pretty sure they weren't wild, but the steers may have been wild. That we'll see later. Spoilers, they're steers. Another great day. The 70 SPF suntan lotion did its job for me. Also, rest in peace, those shoes. I left them on top of my car to dry. And, well, you probably know what happened to the shoes after that. I never got them back again. So, this was their last journey. They still live in Big Bend somewhere. I don't know where. Probably in the trash. So then, of course, we saw the steers. Didn't see much else wildlife except that. A lot of dragonflies in the river, but they don't usually bother you. They might land on your paddles, and that's about it. Our guides were great in, you know, telling us everything about the area. Then we finally got to our lunch spot, which was Boquillas Springs, which has the hot springs. So they dropped us off there, and we were able to walk around for an hour, eat, just, you know, do whatever we wanted to do, and then come back to the kayaks and finish the tour afterwards. So I immediately walked up the trail to get to where the hotel used to be. This is the Boquillas Springs hotel and resort that was long abandoned, but still stands. One of the most interesting things to me was seeing an actual palm tree, because surely this was planted and it somehow survived out here. These were like the only palms you see the entire trip. You couldn't go inside, but you could walk around the building, which was cool. So I spent a little time here walking around, but I decided I wanted to head back over to the water, cool off a little bit. Not in that water, but in the hot springs or in the river. So you can see a lot of people here in the water, and then the hot springs right there, which I did end up taking into. Felt quite good. So then we all got back in our kayaks, and this is when we really started to go through Boquillas Canyon. The first part was just kind of the warm-up. Now we're actually going through the canyon, and this was definitely one of the highlights of the whole trip, with these huge canyons on both sides. I can only imagine doing this through Santa Elena Canyon, but I think they only do that if you do multi-day trips. I don't think you can do Santa Elena Canyon on a single-day trip because of its length. So the kayaking trip was really peaceful. You can see there are only a few spots where it even gets a little bit violent, and that's a stretch. You cannot see underwater. Do not open your eyes in the Rio Grande. You will not be able to see anything. yeah, you can see we're getting near to the end of our takeout point, and kind of took my time getting out. And then it was on to my final adventure of the trip, and that was Lost Mine Trail, which again I wanted to do the previous day in the morning, but we're doing it in the evening. Luckily there was some parking, and I decided to hit the trail say around 4:30 or 5, I think I got there. So I still had 3 hours to complete the trail, which was more than enough time for me. So if you're a pretty fast-paced hiker, I think you can do this trail in 2 hours if you're really booking it. The views were incredible. This was such a nice trail. If Santa Elena Canyon is your must-do, I would say Lost Mine Trail at about 4 or 5 miles is definitely second must-do, because the views from the top were awesome of the Chisos Mountains. I mean, just... So here's kind of the first peak, but there's a lot of places to spread out. So I can see even when this trail gets really busy, when you get to the top, it's not gonna feel like you're on top of people. Kind of bunched up. You'll be able to spread out, and you'll be able to, kind of walk around to different areas and really enjoy the view and enjoy just being up in this, peak that's kind of surrounded by all these other peaks, and it really gives you such a unique view. And I would say at sunset, this was a pretty beautiful hike too. I know it's supposed to be a sunrise hike, but I was really impressed with the views here at sunset. Definitely a little different because you kind of have the darkness cascading from the other side of those mountains. Very much my Lion King moment right there. This was the perfect cap off to my entire trip. I was really just blown away. Gonna head back down now from Lost Mine Trail. Still got a lot of light left, but don't really want to stay up here till sunset. There's one couple up here, and that's about it. So they're coming down in the dark, it sounds like. But oh, and the Roadrunners, they were the cutest little birds. I'm sure some of them might even be friendly enough to eat out of your hand if you really wanted to, but they were so cute. And they'd be hopping along here and there. So made my way down the mountain as quickly, relatively as I could. Stopped to take a few videos here and there. Dipping into the cold now. Dipping down a little bit. I might need to get my flashlight out. Maybe pick up the pace. I was really sad that my time in Big Bend was coming to an end. If I could do it over again, I would have left Carlsbad Caverns and just come straight to Big Bend a day early. So even though I stopped to record a few things, I left the peak at 7:15. I'm down here at 8. So you can blaze down this trail in 45 minutes. As long as it's cool, right? I didn't have to stop for water or anything. And yeah, still a little bit of sunlight out too. I don't need more than 3 days at the other parks, and I would have preferred to have 4 full days at this park, but I see myself coming back to Big Bend in the future. The other 3, maybe not, but this one, I absolutely want to visit again and see more of it. So I said goodbye to my room, began my drive out to El Paso to catch my flight the next day, and that's it. I made a few little stops. I went to Panther Junction at the visitor center, which is the main visitor center. If you were wondering, go to the Panther Junction one. And yeah, just stopped by Terlingua Ghost Town, which was fine. It's mostly just a cemetery, a gorge, and a few buildings, but not really anything not my kind of interest. But that was it. It was an incredible 7 full days, and I really hope to see Big Bend again soon.